I used to think the worst thing was being forgotten, but it turns out what's more painful is having your own work used to push you out of the game. That project needs someone with more vision, she said, her eyes as cold as stainless steel. I sat across from her, fists clenched but face calm, though my heart trembled with fury. Outside the glass-walled room, a few coworkers peeked in as if witnessing a trial, not an HR meeting. I knew this moment would come. I just didn't expect it to be this shameless. My name is Ella Thompson. I'm 48 years old and was the lead coordinator at the architecture firm Stonebridge & Co. for 11 years. I didn't just do my job. I did other people's jobs too. Especially Amanda Lewis is the head of design and recently appointed deputy creative director. She's 39, sharp, articulate, and especially good at making others believe their ideas were hers. And today, she fired me. The Ashford Project needs a leader who can clearly shape the brand vision, Amanda said, trying to sound polite but unable to hide her satisfaction. You've done well in a supporting role, but I need a real leader. I swallowed my anger. The Ashford Project, where I cut $420,000 in construction costs by adjusting the structural layout? Amanda shrugged. I was the one who presented the design to the board. You know, that's my job, representing the team. And I was the one drafting the design during late nights until 2 in the morning, I replied, voice low but sharp. Amanda crossed her arms, irritation slipping through. Ella, accept it. The company needs new energy. It needs people who know when to step aside, and now is your time to do that. She stressed each word as if I were some outdated relic clinging to long-dead glory days. But the truth is, I was the one behind the firm's most iconic projects over the past decade. The Lake Point condos, the Silver Creek City Hall renovation, and the newly launched Rock Hill Mall all bore my imprint. Amanda? She only showed up for the final presentations. I stood, grabbing my purse. I'll leave on Friday, but I think by Monday you'll realize you fired the wrong person. Amanda frowned. I don't have time for cryptic comments. I looked her straight in the eyes. That wasn't cryptic. That was a fact. I walked out of the meeting room quietly, but with my head high. Through the glass, I saw the wall of honor, the one lined with photos of award-winning projects. At least 5 of them were mine, from concept to completion, yet the name under each was Amanda Lewis. I returned to my desk. Jana, the young receptionist, handed me a small sticky note as she passed. If you need a witness, I'm in. I nodded slightly, knowing I wasn't alone, at least not morally. But in a company where power controls both narrative and evidence, morality saves no one. I opened my drawer and pulled out the silver external hard drive. Inside were all the original drawings, internal emails, and date-stamped design logs. Evidence I had been quietly archiving for 6 months. I didn't do it for revenge. I did it on instinct. And my instincts have never been wrong. Amanda didn't just take credit for my work. She was setting the stage for a bigger game I was only starting to glimpse. But if she thought I'd walk away quietly like a sacrificial pawn, she picked the wrong woman. I don't remember exactly when I began suspecting Amanda. Maybe it was that meeting last year when she presented the Sequoia Sports Center design as if she'd sketched every line herself. I sat in the audience next to the city partners, struggling to stay composed as each slide passed, each one born of my long nights, rough sketches, CAD files, and post-site visit edits. Amanda didn't mention me once, not a glance, not a word of thanks. Back then I told myself, let it go as long as the project succeeds. But over time I realized this wasn't coincidence. This was a plan. Since Amanda transferred to the main Seattle office 3 years ago, she slowly inserted herself into every project I managed. At first, it was just giving feedback, then temporarily leading a meeting, and finally signing her name on final reports. I still remember the hollow feeling when I saw the article in Northwest Design magazine, showing Amanda beaming in the Arlington Grand Hotel lobby, a building I spent nearly a year redesigning. The article credited her as the mind behind the multifunctional architecture. Me? No name, no interview, no questions, just shallow congratulations from coworkers and the director's averted eyes as I walked out of the break room. You probably don't mind, right? An intern asked after the launch event. I heard you just did the technical part. I gave a dry smile, unwilling to answer. If I spoke up, I'd be labeled petty or jealous. Meanwhile, Amanda was praised as a model of success, one of the brightest talents under 40, according to Seattle Business Weekly. That's when I began collecting evidence. Every drawing, every internal email, every attachment I sent through the system, I backed it all up on a separate hard drive. I even asked Jenna, the loyal receptionist, to timestamp printed files before submitting them to planning. Jenna never asked why, just gave me a knowing look. I knew she saw what was happening, and that gave me strength to continue. But the worst blow was when Amanda took credit for the Rock Hill Urban Center project, a project I had guided from demographic research through permit approval. She attended one model review meeting, then suddenly became creative concept lead. I remember her voice clearly when she told the press. We wanted open spaces to reflect the rhythm of modern community life, not just beautiful, but connective. Word for word, she quoted my pitch notes from the previous week. Not a single word changed. I sat there frozen, heart clenched. This wasn't just credit theft. It was the hijacking of my creative identity, turning it into her personal brand. I started to feel like a ghost wandering my own company. People admired Amanda but avoided me. Even though I fixed their drafts, stayed late to tweak renderings, now, when Amanda walked by, they stood up like royalty entered. Me, just a slight nod, like I was an old file gathering dust. I once thought, let it be, I'm not the type to fight. But when I saw my beloved projects distorted, mislabeled, and worse, sold for politics or personal gain, I knew I couldn't stay silent. I couldn't let someone else rewrite a story written in my sweat and tears. The only question left was when. When would I expose Amanda? When would I show this company how I'd truly been treated all these years? I looked at the hard drive in my drawer, small but heavy like a stone. Inside was the truth. Inside was proof that I, Ella Thompson, was the real force behind every design they celebrated. And I knew that moment was near, very near. I was just sorting the last of my documents at my desk when the phone rang. Jenna's voice, calm but tense. Ella, someone from Archer and Hayes is waiting for you at reception. They said it's about a design consultation you provided. I froze. Archer and Hayes? Stonebridge and Co.'s biggest rival? I'd never worked with them, never consulted. Throw at the name. Samuel Beckett. He says he's the director of project development. I swallowed hard. Tell him I'll be right down. My heart pounded as I stepped into the elevator. Archer and Hayes wasn't the kind of firm to stop by just to say hello. If they mentioned a design consultation, it meant something was happening behind my back. Something serious. The man in his early 50s, wearing a light gray suit, stood up when he saw me enter the lobby. He extended his hand with a polite smile. Ms. Thompson, thank you for meeting with me. I'm Samuel Beckett, in charge of the East Harbor redevelopment project. I shook his hand, trying to stay composed. I think there's been a misunderstanding. I've never worked with your firm. Really? He raised his eyebrows, surprised. Because we're currently using design files labeled as your consultation through Stonebridge. A chill ran down my spine. East Harbor. I once drafted a concept for ecological restoration and public redesign in that area as a personal weekend exercise. Never submitted to the company and certainly never shared with anyone. It was something I did purely for creative exploration, with ideas for green bridges and flood-resilient public spaces. May I see those design files? Of course. Samuel opened his tablet, tapped a few times, then handed it to me. I froze. The model was still mine, but slightly modified. Color changes, Stonebridge's logo added, and Amanda's name in the lower corner of the layout alongside the line, Joint Concept by Stonebridge and Archer and Hayes. I took a deep breath, feeling like I was about to explode. Who sent you these files? Deputy Creative Director Amanda Lewis. She said you were responsible for the pre-project research and technical database, but the overall concept was finalized by her. I stiffened. Amanda hadn't just stolen my idea. She had turned me into the technical assistant. She had quietly taken my private design, edited it, and sold it as a collaborative product to a competing firm. Mr. Beckett, I need to ask you something. I tried to keep my voice steady. When did you receive these designs? About 3 weeks ago. 3 weeks. That was when I was on vacation with my daughter in Arizona. My laptop had been left at the office, plugged in like always. Amanda had done something with my computer. She dug through my personal folders, grabbed the drafts, edited them, and slapped her name on them. Part of me wanted to scream right there in the lobby, but I knew I had to stay calm. Thank you for sharing this. I think I need to verify some internal information before we discuss this project further. Of course. He nodded. If anything needs clarification, feel free to contact me. We're very impressed with the design, especially the integration of green space with flood-prone areas. I returned to my desk feeling like I'd been struck by lightning. A stream of questions spun through my head. How many times had she done this? Were there other victims? Did the company know, or were they all just turning a blind eye? I opened my computer and checked the access history. A series of my drawing files had been opened during the week I was away from an administrator account. That meant someone with high-level clearance. The username was admin_Lewis. There was no doubt Amanda had broken into my account, stolen my designs, and signed a deal with a rival firm, all under official credentials. I stared at the screen, my chest tightening. She hadn't just taken credit, she'd dragged me into something that could turn into a serious professional ethics violation. If discovered and I didn't act, I could be held responsible. Amanda didn't just want me out, she wanted to destroy the reputation I'd built over 20 years. I opened the drawer and pulled out the hard drive. This was no longer about recognition or prestige. This was survival. And I had no choice but to fight back. The next morning, as I walked into the office, I felt the tension in the air like static. Avoidant glances, whispers slicing down the hallway like razors. Jenna, the receptionist, quickly turned away when I tried to speak to her. Something had happened, and I had a dreadful feeling I was at the center of it. I sat down and turned on my computer. My inbox was flooded with internal emails titled Urgent Policy Reminder on External Data Sharing and Security Breach Protocol Update. My blood ran cold as I opened the HR email and felt my heart drop. Phase Ella, we are conducting a review related to allegations of unauthorized sharing of internal documents with an external party. During this investigation, you are temporarily suspended. Please refrain from accessing the company network. I stood up and walked straight to the Director of Technology's office. The door was slightly ajar, and I heard Amanda's voice. And here's the screenshot showing Ella's account sending design files to an Archer and Hayes email, along with attachments matching the submitted concept. I pushed the door open, voice sharp as steel. I have never sent any designs outside the company. Amanda turned, feigning surprise. Ella, I thought you were on suspension. I am. I looked directly at the director. Kyle, I request to see those emails she mentioned. Kyle glanced at Amanda, then reluctantly turned his screen. A string of emails appeared. The sender was my address. The attachments matched the East Harbor concept, but I had never written them. These emails were sent about 3 weeks ago, Kyle said, around the time you were on vacation. I nodded slowly. Exactly. My laptop was in the office then. Who had access to the system? Amanda jumped in. Ella, no one's accusing you. If you just admit and explain, I'm sure people will understand. I turned to her, voice low but razor sharp. You used your admin privileges to access my account. You modified my design, sent it using my email, and now you're accusing me of betraying the company. That was your plan, wasn't it? Amanda froze. You're making baseless accusations. Then why does the access history show a session from an internal IP address that only deputy directors are authorized to use? I turned to Kyle. Can you verify that? A heavy silence followed. Kyle glanced between Amanda and me. I'll need to notify the IT department. I nodded. Good. In the meantime, I request that no data from my account be deleted. I walked out, leaving Amanda standing there, her usual icy confidence beginning to crack. But I knew she wasn't done playing. Less than 30 minutes later, I got a call from Jenna. Ella, you need to come to the third floor conference room. There's an emergency meeting with the executive director. I clenched my fists. The final play had begun. Amanda had clearly set up this last act. Eliminate me before the truth could surface. In the meeting room, Mr. Donald, the CEO of Stonebridge, sat at the head of the table with 3 others from the legal team. Amanda sat to the side, a neat folder arranged in front of her. Ella, Donald began, we have troubling evidence suggesting you shared confidential material with a competitor. I replied, that evidence was generated through unauthorized access to my account, and I have strong reason to believe Amanda is behind it. Amanda smiled coldly and handed over the folder. Here are printed emails from Ella's account, a call transcript from Archer and Hayes, and a recorded conversation with Mr. Samuel Beckett, where he confirms Ella shared the design. I froze. Beckett? Why would he say that? Then I remembered. He had called back, asking about clarifying a few technical details. Amanda had set me up. She knew Beckett would call. She had probably recorded the call, spliced it, and framed it as a technical consultation. Step by step, she had paved the trap. Donald looked at me sternly. Given the gravity of this case, we are suspending all your system access and awaiting a report from the independent investigation team. In the meantime, you are not to contact any clients or internal staff. I gripped my bag. Don't get angry. Don't lose control. I simply said, I will not let my name be buried under lies. And I have evidence. I walked out, head high, though a storm raged inside me. Amanda hadn't just stolen my credit. She was tearing down the legacy I'd built over 2 decades. But what she didn't know was this. I didn't enter this battle empty-handed. I left the Stonebridge building that afternoon in silence. No one saw me off. No one looked me in the eye. The indefinite suspension notice, still warm in my handbag, felt like a slap to my dignity. But what truly burned inside me was not shame. It was determination. If Amanda thought I would surrender, she picked the wrong opponent. That very evening, I started gathering everything I had. The external hard drive had been encrypted and backed up in 3 separate places, one into a private cloud drive, one sent to a secure mailbox, and one compressed into a USB hidden carefully in my daughter's miscellaneous box in the basement. I did not take chances. On my personal computer, I opened a private storage folder named Origins. Inside were more than 40 design files I had created over the past 7 years, each with original metadata, timestamps, and design notes. Not just the East Harbor, I had proof from the Sequoia Sports Center, the Arlington Grand Hotel, and even the Rock Hill Urban Center. Projects Amanda had once claimed as her own. I thought of David, the only person in the design department who never turned his back on me. I sent a short message. I need help. Can we meet privately? He replied in under 3 minutes. Tonight, cafe on 12th Street, 7 o'clock. When I arrived, David was already seated with an untouched espresso. He nodded as a greeting, voice lowered. This is worse than I thought. After your suspension, Amanda went around the office saying you betrayed the company, sold the design for cash. She even claimed you used the company credit card for personal expenses. I gave a cold laugh. She is not stopping at stealing credit for my work. Now she is burning down my reputation in every corner. David looked around the cafe, then leaned toward me. But not everyone believes it. I kept the original print of the Rock Hill project, the one you signed when it was completed. It has ink marks and the date signature. I can scan it for you. Gasped his hand, my eyes welling. Thank you, David. You have no idea how much that means. And Jenna, he added, she said she found unusual access to your computer during your vacation. The IP address matched Amanda's office. We sat together for nearly 2 hours, listing every document we needed to collect: original, time-stamped design files, email confirmations from clients, meeting records where I was the presenter, screenshots from my personal hard drive, digital signatures from the approval system. I even had a Slack message from Amanda 3 years ago where she wrote, "This flood control green bridge concept is really creative, Ella. I wish I could come up with something like that." A subtle admission, but still evidence. The next morning, I met Jenna in the basement parking lot where there were no cameras. She handed me a yellow envelope containing system access logs and a small black USB. I only copied what the system had stored. If caught, I will say it was a routine security check. I took her hand. "I will not let you be implicated. Jenna, if this goes to court, I will take full responsibility." "You do not understand," she said, her eyes glistening. "We have watched you fight for so many years. It is time we stand with you." 3 days later, I held a file nearly 200 pages thick. I printed everything using my personal printer, numbered the pages, clearly categorized them: concept phase, acte de grâce, implementation phase, email evidence, client feedback. I hired an intellectual property attorney, Miss Lisa Monroe, who once won a landmark case against a major design firm in Chicago. She reviewed the file, silent for nearly 20 minutes, then looked up. "Simpson, I do not just think you can win this case. I believe you can get them to issue a public apology, pay damages, and remove Amanda from the industry for many years." I looked at her, my throat tight. "Then," I said, "let us begin." I knew the battle ahead would not be easy, but I was no longer afraid. I had been trampled, defamed, pushed to the edge, but I still stood tall. And this time, I was not just fighting for myself. I was fighting for everyone who had ever had their voice stolen. That morning, I walked into the meeting room on the 16th floor of the Stonebridge headquarters, carrying a heavy shoulder bag, not because of its weight, but because of the gravity of the truth inside. Every step echoed on the wooden floor, syncing with my heartbeat. But I was no longer trembling, no longer afraid. I came to end the dirty play Amanda had been scripting for years. The long meeting room was arranged in a rectangular shape. At the head of the table was Donald, the CEO of the company. To his left were 3 members of the board. Across from him sat 2 representatives from the city of Portland. Next to Samuel Beckett, the project director from Archer and Hayes. And on the other side of the table, as usual, Amanda Lewis, in a brand new black suit, her hair tightly pinned up, her eyes no longer confident but filled with tension. I sat down in the chair that had been prepared, placed my laptop on the table, and opened the folder titled Proof Ella Thompson Originals. No one said a word. They were waiting. I began. "I want to thank everyone for coming here today. I understand there has been a lot of controversy surrounding the ownership of the East Harbor redevelopment design. I am not here to argue, but to present the truth with valid, clear, and irrefutable evidence." I connected the laptop to the projector. The screen at the far end of the room lit up. The first slide displayed a hand-drawn sketch of the harbor, with the date visible in the lower corner, February 10th, 2022. "This is the first drawing I made for the ecological restoration idea of the harbor. It was drawn in February of last year, during a time when I was conducting personal research outside of work hours." I moved to the next slide, a screenshot from the design software showing the metadata: the author's name, the date of the first edit, and the file history. As you can see, the metadata confirms that I am the original creator. The first save date matches the time I logged in from my home IP address. Board member leaned toward the screen. "Is there any third-party verification?" I nodded. "I hired an independent digital forensic analyst. This is the verification report. The entire design file was created, edited, and stored on my device. There are absolutely no links to Amanda Lewis's account." I displayed on the screen an email Amanda had sent me in April of last year. In it, she wrote, "This flexible green space integration idea is truly brilliant, Ella. I will talk to Donald to see if we can turn it into a project." I emphasized every word. Amanda acknowledged the idea was mine. Her own words are the strongest piece of evidence. From the Archer and Hayes side, Mr. Beckett spoke slowly. "Do you have any design file that we received from Stonebridge?" I moved to the next slide. The design file that had been sent from the company account to Archer and Hayes, but the metadata inside was identical to the version I created. These files are mine, taken and sent by Amanda while I was on leave. The login activity on my computer at that time came from an administrator account, a privilege only Amanda possessed. I turned to Donald, locking eyes. She did not only steal my work, but also impersonated me to send the designs externally, then accused me of selling the documents illegally. Amanda let out a dry laugh, her voice still composed. These are fabricated stories from an employee who was suspended for policy violations. I never sent anything out without approval. I cut her off. I have system access logs, internal IP addresses that logged into my account. I have system email logs showing the file was sent from her office while I was away. One of the Portland representatives spoke up. We were already suspicious when Amanda could not answer detailed technical questions about the design. Now, seeing this evidence, there is really no doubt left. Mr. Beckett nodded slowly. And if I am not mistaken, under federal law, using intellectual property without permission is a serious violation. Donald remained silent for nearly 1 full minute, his gaze moving from Amanda back to me. Allah, we will need some time to review the entire documentation, but clearly, there are many things the board has overlooked. I apologize for that. I packed up my laptop. I do not need an apology, I need justice. Before leaving the meeting room, I paused and looked Amanda straight in the eye, the person now pale, unable to say a word. You used my name to build your own reputation, but today, that name will take everything back. The day after that intense meeting, the atmosphere at Stonebridge headquarters had completely changed. Every hallway, every desk, every pair of eyes was focused on one place, Amanda Lewis's office. Her glass door, usually shut with blinds half drawn, now stood wide open, a silent statement that her facade had been stripped away. That very morning, the Information Technology Department, under direct order from CEO Donald, began auditing the entire system login history for the past 6 months. Within just a few hours, the results left no room for doubt. Amanda Lewis had used her administrator access to log into my personal account on 5 separate occasions, each time aligned perfectly with the dates when the design files were stolen and sent under my name. But the fatal blow did not come from technology, it came from people. When Donald held an emergency internal meeting with all department heads that afternoon, something unexpected happened. I was not the only one who spoke up. 3 others stood with me. First was Martha Jones, the head of the Interior Design Department. I once created the renderings for the Oak Ridge complex, but when the project was announced, the entire design was credited to Amanda. I used to think I was mistaken, but now I know I wasn't crazy. Next was Alan Park, a young architectural specialist. He raised his head and spoke clearly. Last year, I presented the idea of using recycled materials during an internal brainstorming session. 2 weeks later, Amanda sent out an internal email announcing the Green Initiative as her own and submitted it for an industry award. I stayed quiet because I was afraid of losing my job. Finally, the gentle receptionist everyone thought knew nothing threw a printed file from the internal check-in system onto the table. Well, she once asked me to edit the entry and exit logs for the office last month to erase evidence that Ella was present on a specific day. I felt uneasy about it, so I quietly saved the original version. The atmosphere in the room fell into a chilling silence. Donald looked at each person in turn, then turned his eyes toward Amanda, who was now pale, her lips tightly pressed together, gripping the folder in front of her as if it were the last thing she had control over. "Do you have anything to say, Amanda?" Donald asked, his voice no longer calm but cold as ice. I just... Her voice faltered. "I just wanted to make sure the project was completed on time. Ella often worked messily. I had to do a lot of revisions." I let out a dry laugh. "And by revisions, you mean breaking into someone's personal account, deleting original metadata, and putting your name on someone else's entire concept?" No one laughed. No one nodded. They all looked at Amanda as if watching a statue collapse in front of them. Donald stood up and picked up the phone, dialing directly to Human Resources. Prepare the termination papers for Amanda Lewis. Reason: serious ethical violations, forgery, unauthorized system access, and misappropriation of intellectual property belonging to another employee. She remained seated, no longer resisting, no longer crying, just a hollow shell, once arrogant, now stripped bare in disgrace. That afternoon, Amanda was escorted out of the building by security. Not a single farewell, not a single regretful glance from anyone. On the internal network, the termination notice was sent out with a stern warning from the board. We do not tolerate the theft of intellectual property. Every contribution at Stonebridge must be properly credited to the rightful individual. Less than 1 week later, industry magazines began reporting on it. An article from Architect Digest was titled, "From Design Prodigy to Disgraced Symbol, the Cautionary Tale of Amanda Lewis." It didn't stop there. 2 other architecture firms in Chicago, where Amanda had previously worked, also came forward. A former employee publicly shared on LinkedIn, "I once lost my first professional contract because a female colleague stole my drawings and submitted them under her name 1 week earlier. Now I know who it was." Amanda's reputation was not destroyed by a single article, but by a wave of witnesses stepping out of the shadows. She didn't just lose her job, she became a living example in architecture ethics classes. I stood by the glass window on the 16th floor, looking out over the city bathed in the sunset. 8 years trapped in silence. 8 years watching others sign their names on my work. Now I had reclaimed it all. Not through compromise, but through truth. And what I was most proud of was that I wasn't alone. 3 days after Amanda was terminated, I was called back to the executive office. Donald greeted me personally, this time without his usual distant demeanor, but with a look of hesitation and, perhaps, remorse. "Ella, I know there are no words that can erase what you've been through," he began, his voice lower than usual. "But the board has met and reached a decision." I sat silently, waiting. "We want to officially restore your reputation. Your entire personnel file will be updated. All accusations and false evaluations, everything will be erased. And more importantly," he pulled a new contract from the drawer and slid it across the table toward me, "we are offering you the position of creative director at Stonebridge." I stared at the bold print at the top of the contract. Creative director, Ella Thompson. Close, my heart pounded. Not because of the promotion, but because finally, after nearly a decade, my voice was being heard. "In the Portland project?" I asked. Donald nodded. "The city officials specifically requested you to lead. They said they've never seen anyone grasp the vision of sustainable development like you. You have full support from the partner board and the technical team." I didn't answer immediately. I needed to be sure. "I will take the role, but on one condition." Donald tilted his head. "I want to build a transparent internal authorship system. Every design, every idea, every contribution must be credited to the right person. No one should be able to sign their name on someone else's work again." He paused for a beat, then extended his hand. "Deal." The following week, I returned to the office like a fresh breeze. There were no more pitying or suspicious glances, only respect. Jenna hugged me tightly when I stepped into the reception area. David brought coffee straight to my new desk, the West Corner office, which used to be Amanda's private room. The official appointment announcement was sent to the entire company that very morning. On the internal network, the CEO wrote, "Ella Thompson has been the force behind numerous key projects at Stonebridge. With her creative spirit, ethical commitment, and exceptional leadership, she is the most deserving choice for the position of creative director. We are proud to continue the journey with her." Messages of congratulations poured in from everywhere, from former colleagues, longtime clients, and even a few students who once heard me lecture at a short seminar 3 years ago. I felt like I had come back to life, not as someone laying foundations for others to walk over, but as the one shaping the road ahead. The Portland waterfront project resumed under my direct leadership. I called a team meeting, not to command, but to share a vision. I don't want to be the one standing in front of reporters saying, "I did it all." I want everyone here to be able to say, "I contributed to that," and for that to be documented by name, on paper, and with true appreciation. We began developing a new internal authorship policy. Each design had to have an original metadata file stored. Every brainstorming session was recorded by a secretary, noting who contributed what. And each project came with assigned credit in the final report. Young architects at the firm began coming to me, not just for advice, but to share things they had previously kept hidden. A girl named Leah, only 6 months into the company, whispered during a meeting, "You're the reason I still believe in this profession, you know?" I looked at her, too moved to speak. I had once dreamed of inspiring others, of creating space not just for buildings, but for people. And now, I was living that dream. 1 month later, I stood at the podium before the Portland City Development Committee. The lights shone straight into my eyes, but I didn't blink. "We are not just rebuilding a waterfront," I said. "We are building a promise that creativity must go hand in hand with fairness, that every voice has a place, and that from ruin, we can create something stronger than concrete. That is trust." The entire room rose in applause. In that moment, I was no longer the woman whose work had been stolen. I was the one who reclaimed it. Through talent, determination, and truth, my story is not just a journey of reclaiming reputation, but a reminder that silence in the face of injustice only feeds wrongdoing. After nearly a decade overshadowed by someone else's name, I found my voice again through persistence, evidence, and belief in the truth. Today, I am no longer just an architect. I am a guide, a living proof that justice may come late, but it always arrives when we do not give up. What do you think about Ella's journey? Did she choose the right way to fight for justice? Share your thoughts below, and don't forget to follow the channel for more heartfelt and inspiring stories about family life.